Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. Dustin Gaethje is a bad motherfucker. He is the BMF, actually, if we're being specific about it. Knockout over Dustin Poirier, Alex Pereira, successful light heavyweight debut, Kevin Holland pulling out submissions, Bobby the King Green pulling out submissions. Clearly, we have a lot to talk about, and if you missed out, well, you missed out on a good one. Breaking it down with me, as always, the New Mexico native himself, the Santa Fe bomber, AJ. It was a close one. On our consensus Bloody Water podcast picks, we did pretty damn good, but I think the biggest story here, man, is the diamond. He got put down by Gaethje 2.0. We've been calling it, we've been talking about it, but tell me what you thought about the events that transpired last night.
How can you be upset, Derick? Even if you were betting with the diamond like I was, it was still a good fight, and we called it, folks. We said this was going to be a very close fight. It's hard to bet, and if you're betting on this one, personally, to me, it was a stay away because of how close and how good both these guys are. Both of them are bad motherfuckers. It just happens to be that Dustin Gaethje reigned supreme that night. I mean, who do you think gets it in the third fight, Derick? I think it's just as close as the second one was.
I think it's just as close as the second one was, but if you're talking about motivations and wanting to have that third fight, if you watch the post-fight presser, which, of course, that's in real time, right? I mean, one camp looked a little more ready to take that fight than the other, but you got to give these people time to relax and have the come down of a crazy fight that they had. Nonetheless, AJ, man, it was a close week on the scorecards for us as well. Give the folks a little bit of context, right? Steven Thompson, Michael Chiesa, fight got canceled. We only had 4 fights on the docket, and I feel like we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't just pretty much jump straight into that. So let's talk about it. If you look at the screen here, folks, we got it done on the left side. We had a perfect 4-0 night. Wasn't the most difficult because me and AJ had 3 of the 4 same picks right there. The point that we have here, though, is that the lead in terms of the total scoreboard is getting pretty close, AJ. So I'm creeping up. I told you I'm going to tie you one of these days. I think the good news here, and I want to ask your perspective on this as well, is that as we get to these later parts of the new year, right, you already talked about it. This gives you more motivation to be on top of it. If we're on top of it, the people who are watching, they benefit as well, because if we win, they win, right? But when we're almost getting back to 0-0 and we're honing in on 4 or 5 months left in the year, just give me strategy perspectives at this point. Are you more conservative? Are you more risk averse? Or are you saying I'm doubling down on the big risks to get the edge ahead? What do you think?
Yeah, man, it's a risky one, Derick, because in my mind, I'm doubling down on what I've been doing for all year long, which is staying a little risky, staying with the picks I think that are going to win. So to answer your question, Derick, I'm kind of still flying by the seat of my pants with it, but I'm staying true to what got me to where I am. If that's going to work out, you've been closing the gap, brother. So there might be some strategy switches coming in the forward. We'll see if I'm trying to predict what you're thinking. But when you start doing that kind of mix up in the game, that's when things get confusing.
Yep.
So more than likely, brother, it's going to be a double down. What about you? Do you see any forward trajectory on how you're going to be changing up bets at all, or not one bit?
We'll see. That's the part right there. Folks, give you guys a little bit of transparency. This is the transparency part of the show. This is a competition between me and him. And when you get too cerebral, just as you said, when I start thinking, oh no, I'm going to do a reverse Uno card on you and things of that nature, things start getting weird. Whatever it is, trust your gut. That's really my perspective with it. When I look at a fight and I say, this line doesn't make sense stylistically, I don't see it taking place that way. That's how we get lucky and we get an Alex Pereira win over Jan Blachowicz, right? So you got to just kind of roll with what you got. But the point is, I'll bring it up one more time, we have a little change to the show. We didn't deliver quite well for you this time, folks around, but this was your UFC locks of the night for the prop bet. My man Adrian had the Holland TKO, which was a hell of a good bet. Who would have thought Michael Chiesa would have got darsed by him? And then for mine, Michael Pereira decision. I swear I still feel so good about that lock. It is null and void. The fight never took place. With that being said, this is the new-ish structure of the show. Not much changes. We're just giving you locks instead of throwing them out in the wind. And AJ, anything before we jump into these main card fights?
Man, just speaking on that prop bet, folks, nobody saw the darts coming from Kevin Holland, but this is the MMA game. That's how it goes. So a good bet regardless. And if you're a Kevin Holland bettor and you did go submission, credit to you. Let us know in the comments if you're winning some money on those.
And if you want some money, subscribe now. Tell a friend to tell a friend, because this is your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. 4-0 on the night for me, 3-1 for my man AJ. If you're tailing somebody who's throwing out picks, you should probably be telling people who are winning. I'm just going to leave that for what it's worth. All right, AJ, with that being said, let's talk about this BMF belt, baby. Let's go.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ. AJ, this was a hell of a scrap. This definitely had big fight feels onto it, especially given that this was a rematch. And the craziest thing about this is that we have to like lay this out every single time I feel that there's a big numbered card. Narrative is everything. The UFC is going to sell you a story, and it is your job to make a decision on whether you're going to believe that story or if you're going to just take what you see and what you understand about the fight game and make that as your prediction, as your call. Now, we were both really high on Justin Gaethje, but we also give all the respect in the world to Dustin Poirier because he's earned it. Were you surprised, AJ, that Justin Gaethje came out here and by the time that the fight finished, not only did he have a miraculous head kick knockout on Dustin Poirier, Robert Whittaker style, right, Leon Edwards style, but he also threw and landed more strikes. Were you surprised?
Not really, Derick. We were talking about how Justin Gaethje has grown into becoming a very technical fighter, more technical than he previously was. Mm-hmm. And we were saying how Dustin Poirier has kind of stayed at that same technical level. Arguably, technically, Dustin Poirier is still a little bit more solid in that fact, but seeing Justin Gaethje, come out and really start to put the work in, more strikes, looking good. That technique that he really went and started working on Elevation Fight Team and honing in showed levels above. But it's still crazy to me, Derick, that one of the most, or the way he finishes the fight is how he used to. Big head kicks, big bodies, big power. He still has that savage killer mentality in him. But now, man, he has some very sharp tools in the tool belt to go along with it. So to answer your question, not really surprised, man. I was just surprised that this got finished before 3 because I thought this was going to be a long night, just a slugfest. Were you surprised by the way Justin Gaethje kind of was being more technical or more like proficient in the way he was striking?
No, the technical prowess of Justin Gaethje was not surprising. That's everything that I expected. It's the volume, honestly. He was throwing way more than I anticipated him to. He had Dustin Poirier in a spot where Dustin was being forced to walk forward, and Justin Gaethje was just picking him apart with counters, right? Which is not quite what you see. Normally, it's kind of the opposite right there. The most important part, though, is that Justin Gaethje showed that head kick once in the first round, and Poirier got his guard up for it. And I thought that was it. I thought, okay, that was going to be his big shot, but, you don't want to invite any wrestling for Dustin Poirier. You want to keep it clean, stay out the pocket. Brother, he threw it again, and it felt random. It felt like it was a beautiful setup. Don't get me wrong. It was fantastic, but it was so random and out of place. That's probably why Poirier didn't expect it. Blocks it, still wraps around the guard, and just claps you right there above the ear. I mean, listen, man, that's a baseball bat to your head. It put him out, and Justin Gaethje reigned supreme. I guess this is going to be the real question right here. Does this version of Justin Gaethje with a big win over Dustin Poirier give you any confidence that he can have a victory in a rematch against Oliveira or be able to put on a better fight than Charles Oliveira did to Islam Makhachev? What do you think?
It does give me some good feelings going into that fight especially with Islam. Now the Charles makes it a little bit different. I think that just the wild card that Charles presents is a little bit weird. But if Justin Gaethje against Islam is able to stay technically proficient, stay with that thing, and still have that killer instinct, avoid the takedowns like he did, and kind of force Makhachev to be on the front foot, not allowing him to take control, then we got a fight right here, especially if D1 Justin Gaethje comes out and he shows some wrestling game. But I don't know, Derick. What about you? Who of those two opponents do you think has the better shot, or Justin Gaethje has the better shot to take advantage of?
It's tough because I want to say Islam Makhachev, even though that sounds crazy. People are going to be like, what do you mean? Makhachev's going to take him down and drown him. But if he could mimic a little bit of the takedown defense, or at least the submission defense that Volkanovski showed, every time he's on the feet, I imagine Gaethje is just going to destroy the lead leg of Makhachev. So all that stand-up, the pop on the takedown, it all goes away. I just think it's crazy to me that Dustin Poirier, he announced the whole camp, we've been working that check for the inside calf kick. We've been working that all camp. So what does Gaethje do? Outside calf kicks the whole entire fight. I mean, bro, that's just cerebral. That's just like, all right, you took away that weapon, I'm just going to hit you from the other side. I bet you didn't train that. So, I mean, beauty, poetry in motion ultimately here for the Justin Gaethje win. BMF belt gets awarded to the non-ATT team by Jorge Masvidal. Give me any thoughts and impressions just on legacy, on what this fight ultimately means for both fighters. Is Dustin Poirier's legacy tainted at all, and what does this mean for Justin Gaethje?
I think it's a pro for both people, Derick, to be completely honest with you, because if you're on the Poirier side, it's a fake belt. Doesn't matter. It's like the WWE, has no effect on things. But at the same point, if you're on Justin Gaethje's side, you got another belt, brother. You got something to hold that other people want. That is an acclamation. People are claiming this as a belt, so you have to hold it as like a championship. I think it gives both people room to kind of put a pro mark on their record without having an asterisk against them. Even though you lost this fight, doesn't mean a big deal. No, you're still one of the top dogs. You still have all your career. You have aspirations and goals that you can still attain with or without losing the BMF belt. But at the same point, you can kind of nix it by saying, bro, it's not even in a weight class. This thing bounces around. It's whoever it is. He can lose the next fight and still not lose the BMF belt. It doesn't really weigh that much. Personally, though, I like the idea. I like the idea of quote unquote gimme belt, or like a kind of it's up for nothing because it's a lot of fun. What else are we here for besides to be entertained? Let's make a couple more and have some fun, like going forward with that. It spreads the wealth everywhere else, and I like that aspect of it, Derek. Do you see what I'm saying, or do you see it as a pro or a negative on one way or the other?
No, I feel what you're saying. I think legacy-wise, both guys are going to be in a great spot moving forward. Poirier, already a Hall of Famer, in my opinion, even though he never reached the actual goal of champion or unified champion. Justin Gaethje with the BMF belt, it's cool, right? It's a little something that solidifies him as not just the guy of folklore, but the guy who gets bonuses in every single one of his fights. And on top of that, he is one of those rare 4 people in consideration of the BMF, and he actually got it done. Either way, I think if you're in consideration for the BMF belt, you're a BMF. So it's as simple as that. But this is the last point that I want to hit, and I want to move on to the next fight here, AJ. This is something that I feel strongly about. So, forgive me, folks, if you fall into this category, but as they say, if the shoe fits, wear it, right? I really feel like every time we have these numbered events, I love it because this is more traction, this is more visibility for the sport, the casuals get in, everybody has an opinion, right? All I heard all week long is Dustin Poirier this, Dustin Poirier that. He's going to wash Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje isn't good, da-da-da-da-da. And this is why I say UFC paints these pictures, they paint these narratives, and Dustin Poirier gets a lot of extra shine. Why? Because he beat up Conor McGregor a couple times, right? So when you have all of that in play, everybody is going to be very definitive in their opinions. Now, it's our job, once again, to come in here and shed light on the guys who don't have as much name power, who we know are very, very skillful and talented. Now, AJ, I know you picked Dustin Poirier officially on the pick, but I do know you had a very healthy sense of respect for Justin Gaethje being able to get a victory in this fight. Same thing for Alex Pereira. We got lucky on that one, but I want to talk about the overall lesson that we learned here. I say it almost every numbered card, but like at a certain point, you have to start trusting the people who actually put in the time and watch film and understand just kind of the nuances of the sport and what they've seen time and time and time again versus, right, all of the heavy traction that can sway you and make you change your pick. What lessons did we learn from the casual invasion of the numbered card that we always get every couple weeks? What do you think?
And nothing to shit on the casual fans or nothing to shit on, especially the casual media that's portrayed. But if you're falling into those videos and you're falling into the press conferences, you're falling into especially the embeddeds, you're watching those, you're going to see a highlight of one athlete above the other, and you really kind of just dive in and people double down. Again, like Derek said, I bet for Poirier, but it wasn't because of the embedded. It wasn't because of the narrative, because you fall into that trap, and it's exactly that. You're stuck in the game. But Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, they're both high-level fighters, so it is a mix-em-up either way. But to Derek's point, one of my favorite things is seeing all the new people come in, seeing this sport that would have never in a million years attracted them. But then they're like, oh, well, this is actually pretty cool. Love that aspect of it. But again, folks, if you're willing to lay some money down, do not fall into the narrative because it is a trap game more often than not.
And if you feel like, hey, I'm not invested enough to do all of that work, I'd rather just hang out and be a casual, that is absolutely fine. That's why you tune into programs like this, and we got you covered because we're your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. With that being said, the BMF belt has a new holder, I guess you could say it, and that guy's name is Justin Gaethje. All right, folks. Moving on to the co-main event, Potan Alex Pereira comes off of a title loss, a knockout loss to Israel Adesanya. To come back and split decision, Jan Blachowicz is pretty impressive. But AJ, we got to address the elephant in the room. right? There was a little bit of controversy going into the decision here, split decision. A lot of people thought, upon immediate feedback of watching it, robbery, Jan Blachowicz should have won the fight. Rounds 1 and rounds 3 to Jan, round 2 to Alex Pereira. I think it's a little more complicated than that. We can even pull up the MMA decisions if need be, but I need your take first. What did you think about the decision, and how close was this fight truly?
Well, just a little clarity, Derick. More often than not, when I'm watching these fights at home, me and my later having conversation, so I don't watch it with audio until like the post-fight presser comes on, or I'll have it low, so I'm never really tuned into what the announcers are saying. Sometimes, more often than not, there's other things going on. I just like watching the fights like a true fan, seeing my own outtake of it. And by my own take of what was going on last night, I thought it was a robbery. I thought Jan Blachowicz won the fight. I was convinced. I was like, damn, he definitely won round 1. He had the majority of the control of the entire fight, basically. Except when it was standing, he was in control. So I was like, man, I got to rewatch this fight this morning. When I did rewatch this fight this morning, I was convinced it was the right man won the fight. Alex Pereira did enough, especially with damage. And you said, Derick, something in specific on the pre-show. Damage reigns supreme in this era of MMA that's going on right now, and I'm here for it. I love that. I hate the control that wins, but if you're putting more damage on your opponent, you should get the win, and that's what Pereira did, bro. He came in and he laid some serious hammers down, and even when he was in danger, he wasn't really taking much damage. So I think that's where the big thing right here is. And you can even see, I don't know if it's damage versus not, but a lot of these scorers are also weighing it to Pereira as well. Yeah. Derick, did you think it was a robbery upon initial inspection?
When the fight ended, I was like, I thought Pereira won the fight because I thought he did enough. Now, if you're telling me, do I think that, or did I have a feeling that other people would look at the fight and say, yeah, probably Jan won? Yeah, absolutely. Especially on Twitter, everyone is super mad. Jan won the fight. And I'm like, I get it, though. But I get it if this was like a couple years ago, because that was the game plan. You get the big takedown in round 3, you'll win the fight. And then after a while, we're like, I know it can't work that way. You know, whoever lands the most damage, they should win the fight. Doesn't matter if you get the takedown or not. I think that the biggest thing that played into all of this that like gave Alex Pereira the win too is just look at how tired Jan looked in the fight. He looked exhausted. He looked gassed after round 1. So both dudes dead tired. I just think that the perception and the visuals played a little more towards Alex Pereira, even because he was trying to get up from being taken down and no damage was landing. So I thought Pereira got it done. But I think that this really did give off some red flags, and it let us know that while Pereira is such a specimen and an athlete that he can come in with less than 10 fights, right, total or whatever, beat the champion in middleweight, beat up a former champion in light heavyweight who beat the champion. So this is like extra petty, right, because you beat the only guy that beat Israel Adesanya. But I don't think that he really can make it in this top 3, top 4 light heavyweight division right now with the lack of grappling. Grappling develops and gets a little bit better. I think we got a shot. But right now, bro, Yuri Prochazka even, I think, is able to take him down and do some work with him. Jamal Hill, I don't think that he's going to want to really invite the wrestling, but I think that's going to be an avenue. And then we know for sure Magomed Ankalaev is going to give this man massive problems if he can get the fight to the ground. So that's my take on the whole entire perspective. Do you feel the same way about the future trajectory of Poatan? Do you think that his success is almost a detriment right now, or what do you think?
A little bit, Derick. His success is just a little bit of a detriment because you're right. He is one of the top right now, 10 fights in or whatever it is. He's one of the top fighters in the 205-pound class. But then you go against the people you're talking about, and there might be a good fight. The Yuri fight, that'll probably be a really good one because Yuri's willing to stand and trade. He's willing to have that Bushido moment, warrior against warrior. Jamal Hill, arguably not the best wrestling. He still has some good stuff in there, but he's going to look to strike. So there can be some good fights there. But I feel like this is just setting up your boy, brother. The dark horse of the 205-pound class, Magomed Ankalaev, to just reign supreme on all these dudes with his power style of wrestling, which we saw. Pereira not able to just stand up. He wasn't able. He was starting to do the right moves. He was shucking them off. There's things he was doing well. He just wasn't able to fully commit and fully finish what he was starting, and just ended up being controlled. You do that against a guy like Magomed Ankalaev, bro, you're going to be having a rough time just drowning in those deep waters. So I think, Derick, if we're able to see that growth of that wrestling game, we'll see some nice things with Pereira. But honestly, I'm not really, holding my or counting my chickens before they hatch in that basket. Are you? Like, do you think he's really going to turn? And I mean, he does have Glover's help, but is Pereira going to turn into that all-star jiu-jitsu player? He's going to be sweeping, turning, doing all the things we've seen people do, and then stand up and start cracking on him.
Well, I don't think he can turn into a true sprawl and brawl guy until you get some years in terms of like jiu-jitsu, heavy, strictly doing that stuff. We know you could strike. You know you're a fantastic kickboxer. But even when Blachowicz had him in his guard, Pereira didn't try to get feet on the hips. He didn't close the guard. He didn't really do anything. He just kind of let his legs kind of hang there. So I was like, yeah, there's still development that needs to be made, but you can't be mad. This is what you should expect of Alex Pereira right now. Like, everyone has these lofty expectations. Like, he's going to all of a sudden become a black belt or something. Like, come on, give him some time. This is a world-class kickboxer. Jan Blachowicz, though, listen, man, I really do think this fight plays out 10 times. I think that he wins probably like 7 out of 10 times if this fight is not at elevation. That's the big key. He looked exhausted, bro. He looked so tired, and I was a little surprised because Jan normally doesn't get that tired, even though he did a little more grappling than normal to start, and Potan is a big man. I just think that everything came to fruition right here. The stars aligned, and Pereira got the win. He showed the dog. I think that's what's important, but we'll see what the future prospects do. And AJ, I'll tell you this much. If you would have told me that all the fights on this main card would have been a finish except for this fight, I would have been like, no, you're crazy. You're lying. Are you surprised that this got to a decision? And what does it mean that Pereira was able to successfully go 15 full minutes with the big guys at 205?
The big guys at 205 that are knocking people out left and right, bro. It speaks volumes, but it also speaks volumes to Blachowicz. A lesser man would have gone down to all those leg kicks. He was carrying a grapefruit on his ankle, and like I said, a lesser man would have gone down. So this is mind-blowing. Both these guys have absolute power, but apparently those chins reign supreme as well. I would have been shocked if you'd have said this is the only one that doesn't go to a finish.
That's right, but Potan gets it done. Alex Pereira plus 400 split decision victory over Jan Blachowicz. The decision bettors were probably sweating it hard over Pereira, but he got the job done. All right, man. And moving on to King Green. Listen, AJ, he did what he needed to do. He put on a master class on the feet. Now, I'm not lying to you. I'd never think in a million years with 5 seconds left he'd be locking up an arm triangle, but that's just Bobby Green showing he's multidimensional. You got to love that. Let's talk about the other aspect, though, because where there is triumph, there is also tragedy, right? Tony Ferguson. Once again, I said it going into this fight. I think a lot of people felt the same way. I think mentally, he's too tough. Mentally, he's fortified. The body isn't able to always mimic what the mind can do, though. And Bobby Green pretty much put on the perfect game plan to say, I'm faster than you, I'm sharper than you, and you're not going to be able to touch me really on the feet. He did crack him with the big power shots a couple times, but this should probably be the end of El Cucuy. If you're a responsible fan and you care about the longevity of his health and life, right? What do you think?
I 100% agree with you, Derick. As much as I love El Cucuy, one of my favorite fighters growing up, I hope this is the last fight we see him in, man, because just the speed and the craft that he doesn't really have like he used to anymore is just upsetting. Just seeing him, see where he used to be able to have those moves and still gets cracked and still gets hurt and still gets turned and bloodied. And then you get arm triangled by Bobby Green, brother. You're supposed to be one of the, you're supposed to be the Minari guy. You're supposed to be the guy that can pull out anything out of nowhere, and you're getting taken control of, mounted, and then hit switched. It was very impressive fight from Bobby Green. But this, to me, Derek, comes down to an age thing. It's just, when you're hooping with one of your old homies, and you're like, dog, you used to be quick. You used to have some bounce to you. Tony Ferguson used to have some bounce. He used to be quick. He used to have that kind of crazy fighter energy. Now he just has that crazy fighter mentality, which still carries him very, very far. And he obviously still fighting top guys up here, Bobby Green. But, man, it's just rough seeing your idols fall from grace like that. So I do hope it is his last fight. What do you think, Derek? How many more does the crazy man of El Cucuy, the mindset, give him until we see him retire?
I just think it depends on how many fights he has left on his contract. If he has a couple more in his contract, he probably fights it out, honestly, right? But I think that the big problem, you said it comes to age. I think it's age along with this other factor that I already mentioned, and it's athleticism. When you're an athlete whose game is predicated on being athletic, when you get older, the athleticism goes away if you don't have the basic fundamentals. I'm not saying that he's not educated enough to know that, but if you don't implement that time and time again and revamp your fight style, you're going to start getting caught, right? And I think the biggest key here is I said he needed to wrestle against Bobby Green if he wanted to have success. And how does he get into his shots? Imanari rolls, right? He tried the Imanari roll, bro, from so far out. And I was like, yo, like, all right. That's when you knew. You're like, that's like Michael Jordan trying to do just like a post-up fadeaway jump shot. And you're just like, it don't look good no more. You know, there's like he's went on the Washington Wizards or something. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Bobby Green looked spectacular. I think that's really the key that we need to highlight here. Bobby Green looked really, really good, but this now puts us in an interesting place. Yeah, you beat the guy who's been finished in 3 of his last 6 straight losses, right? You know, but if you're Bobby Green, are you just taking these fun OG legacy fights? Like, what are you doing if you Bobby Green? You went from Jared Gordon to Tony Ferguson, so that gets you some stock. Clearly, that's going to get you some stock. But where does that propel you to?
Personally, Derick, I don't think Bobby Green's looking to fight for gold. I think he's looking to fight for green. I think this guy is that money fight. He's going to be talking. He's going to be kind of clamoring, making people want to see him fight whoever it is. Doesn't matter as long as it's the biggest payday. That being said, he is going to have to fight the tougher guys, the name recognitions, you know, the Michael Chandlers, these people that have that kind of built-in following, because you're not going to get the same day, and no disrespect, but you're not going to get the same day or same payday as you would against a Jaron Gordon, where you would against a Michael Chandler. So unfortunately, he's going to have to be fighting these harder fighters going forward, but I don't see him even thinking about a belt until it's right in front of him. Derick, do you?
Yeah, I mean, money fights are always the fun fights, right, for Bobby Green. I just think that at the end of the day, the more big names you win against, it propels you forward. You're going to have to inevitably fight those guys. So you don't really have a choice, right? So, you know, like I said, sometimes success can come to a detriment, right? I don't think it's going to be the case for Bobby Green, but I will say first submission victory since his UFC debut. Brother, I mean, that's impressive. Shout out to the king, the golden voice of the Bloody Water Podcast sleeper section, Bobby King Green. All right, now to open us up, Kevin Holland he took a highly prized neck home in Michael Chiesa, first round submission victory, and this was all about youth versus the OG, right? This was about length, power, size versus technique and skill. Now, AJ, what's one of the I would say themes that we had coming into this matchup? Not this matchup, but this card. Youth versus the older fighters, right? We got robbed of one of them, the Pereira versus Wonderboy Thompson. But we kind of said all of these older guys, you can't keep betting on them forever. Kevin Holland, I think he showed us and he proved to us that at the end of the day, doesn't matter what kind of specialist you are, doesn't matter that you won the Ultimate Fighter. Kevin Holland's really, really good. And what it comes down to is his length and his size and his power just being too much. What did Michael Chiesa display to you in this fight?
Man, to be honest, Derick, what Michael Chiesa displayed to me on this fight was he is just a half step. He's not really fully invested in it anymore. It seems like he's a half step back to where he is, and it seems like his fighting style and strengths are regressing a little bit. Like normally, give this fight 2 years ago, Michael Chiesa just absolutely runs through. Remember, he was ragdolling people left and right on the ground, just an absolute menace. And then for some reason, he's just lost that half step. So I don't know if necessarily he's lost it, but he just hasn't been developing his tools in the necessary form to grow. Whereas we have Kevin Holland. We've seen the growth pattern of Kevin Holland. It's unmatched, and that was on full display for me personally. Not necessarily, I don't want to call it work ethic, Derick. I don't want to call it technique or anything, but I do think that growth pattern that Kevin Holland has showed is far levels above, obviously, where Michael Chiesa now is. But it seems like Michael Chiesa just hasn't really gone to that stage. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of it, Derick, when the bus incident happened with with Conor McGregor and Michael Chiesa caught some glass to the eye, he started catching a lot of flack. And then I feel like after that, he's never recovered. We haven't seen that same killer performance since before like that era really started to take place. It seems like Michael Chiesa has been kind of lost in the dust. Would you agree, or where do you think the falter has been, if at all any?
Well, I'm not sure if that was Michael Chiesa that you're talking about. I think you might be talking about Ray Borg.
No, Ray Borg, Michael Chiesa, and it was a female fighter too. Was it Rose? I forget.
Yeah, they were all on it. I know Ray Borg was the one who got glass in his eye, and he couldn't compete, and he had to get taken off the card. I don't think Michael Chiesa was as big of an issue. Even if that's true, I don't really think that was the catalyst. You know, he's been dealing with back problems. I think that's like the real issue. So he's been taking epidurals. That's why he's been out, back injuries. So Kevin Holland, he made note of that. He was like, let's see if this dude could even make the cut. Like, you know, this is an old man, right? This is what it comes down to. I just think that you have an older class of fighters, right, And then you have the new hybrid fighters that we talk about all the time. And sometimes the older class doesn't really catch up to what the newer class is doing. Think about it. Kevin Holland's a black belt. This dude's a fantastic striker, fought up a weight class. And his biggest problem has been when the big, huge, elite wrestlers grab hold of him like Marvin Vettori and just dump him on his butt. He doesn't really have a problem against anybody else. So another one of the Tony Ferguson era guys, kind of, not really, right? This dude's not as OG as Tony Ferguson, but like that older era, you kind of get put to pasture in this sense. I do think that Michael Chiesa still has something left in the tank, but not against these top guys. Because Kevin Holland is this perfect trap game opponent. Doesn't have the number next to his name. He's kind of a big name, but he's not a big enough name for you to want to take as serious as someone who's like number 5, number 7 in their division, which Kevin Holland should probably be in that range, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And especially if you looked at the way Kevin Holland's losses have happened, you think Michael Chiesa, you're like, oh, I'm gonna run through this dude. I'm gonna control this guy, grapple him up. It's gonna be no problem. It turned out to be the opposite.
Yeah, big win for Kevin Holland. I mean, that's all we could say here. Plus 350 submission. He knew that the Darce opportunities were going to be there, and when you got somebody as long and lanky as Kevin Holland, you got to watch your neck, man. That's for sure. All right, folks, with that being said, that is going to be it for the official takes that we had here for UFC 291. But we still have a big fight that we need to talk about that we haven't yet. Return of the Black Beast, Derick Lewis. He gets the spectacular knockout victory over Rogerio de Lima. And if you're a handicapper, you're super upset because he just killed a ton of parlays right there, right? I would have had perfect picks on a parlay sheet, 5-pick sheet, if Derick Lewis would have lost the fight. But we're nostalgic enough, right? We feel enough nostalgia, and we're big enough fans of the Black Beast that we say we don't even care about that. What we care about is that my man finally got back on track, AJ. Like, this was a much-needed victory for him. But I think that this showed us something. And what it showed us is that at the end of the day, unless you're throwing up these big, surprising athletic shots in a normal toe-to-toe fisticuffs, I think Rogerio de Lima gets that done probably 7 out of 10 times. What do you think?
I think so too, Derek. I think you're right on that point right there. But what I'm most excited about, thankfully, I didn't notice this fight got put on, so I wasn't able to get some money on it because I also would have probably bet for Rogerio de Lima just the way things were going. But what made me happiest, Derek, is the Black Beast was back to his exciting ways. Yep. It finally looked like he was fighting his fight, man. His old school coming in, I'm brawling like a madman, throwing a flying knee as the first entrance, going Jorge Masvidal style, brother. This made me very excited to watch a rejuvenation of a career because it's as much of a character the Black Beast is. You could tell he's a good dude. He has a big heart. He's funny. He's always making people laugh. Like, he's not the one to trifle with, but he's probably one of the best ones to have at a barbecue. And seeing him get back to that jubilant side, that excited moment, that happy, he's always talking now. He took his pants off. This was a classic Black Beast fight, excuse me. And, man, it really made me happy to watch that kind of thing go down. But you're right. If this is just a toe-to-toe brawl, step in, we're going technical, we're swinging, I think this fight might have turned out a little bit opposite. But, again, happy to see Derick Lewis. This is the one time where the old guy's getting the win. I'm happy to see it, brother. What about you? Yeah,
bro. I mean, listen, it's exciting. It's a beautiful thing to see. He takes his pants off after, and I really thought he was going to retire, bro. Like, he took his pants off, took his gloves off, threw them all into the crowd and all that. I was like, oh, he's done, right? Like, that's it. This is a fantastic way to go out in style, in victory. But he says he wants a new contract. Even though he is a free agent, he just fought out his contract. We'll see what happens in negotiations next. But, yeah, it's always good to see the Black Beast get a victory. Hard on my pocketbook, but, I'll take the L on that one. Either way, man, really, really solid night of fights through and through. I think that we should talk about a couple of these prelims, though. So let's jump into it. All right, folks, and jumping into these prelims, before we get started, if you haven't subscribed yet, this is a perfect opportunity. We just hit the money-making section of the show. Now we're just talking about the other section where you definitely still could have won some money, but this is more of the other fights, right, that we have yet to break down in depth. And I wanted to talk about here, AJ, if you look at the card right here, first, this was so impressive, man. Gabriel Bonfim versus Trevin Giles. What you need to know about this fight is that, look at that, 3 total strikes for him, 1 total strike for Trevin Giles. This is one of the rare opportunities, man. You jump Gilly, and it actually works, man. This was like a flawless victory for Bonfim, 15-0, real player in this division. What do you think about the win?
Bro, the Bash brothers are coming in and they're here to stay, brother. This was a very impressive fight and was most impressive to me. Usually Trevin Giles is the fast guy. He's usually one of the quicker guys out there. Bonfim came in with some heat, brother. Very quick, very slick, and like you said, jumped Gilly and actually made it work. Yeah. Very impressive win. Trevin Giles is used to be one of those like gatekeeper-esque fighters around that same level. Bonfim did it in flying colors. Nothing but love over here, brother. What about you?
That's right. I thought it was a fantastic win, and not to be confused with the Blachowicz brothers. The Bonfim brothers, yes, are here absolutely to stay, even though Ismael Bonfim did drop his bout last. CJ Vergara gets a decision victory over Vinicius Salvador, and this is a case right here, AJ, where Salvador was upset that he lost the fight. Shouldn't have been upset because the commentary team was even saying it. They're like, one of these guys is going to be mad that they didn't do enough to get the win. He's backed heavily. He's so good. Salvador is really good and has a lot of hype behind him for good cause, but I think that he just dropped some of these fights due to just a little lapse of focus here and there. Vergara did what he needed to do to get the win, man. Fair and square. But what do you think, man? Do you feel the same assessment of Salvador or no?
Oh, I was even telling my girl when this fight was going on that Salvador should win this fight. By all means, he has all the cards stacked in his favor. He just needs to perform. And what did CJ Vergara do? He outperformed him. He outclassed him. He out-hustled him. And that's what Vergara's one of his best keys is. I forget if he's like a wrestler from, growing up, but he has that same kind of attitude, grit, and performance that this is going to keep pushing. And if you don't stop CJ Vergara or mitigate his offenses, he's going to keep fighting his fight. And that's exactly what happened. Like I said, I feel bad. I don't feel bad for Salvador because he didn't perform, but I do feel bad because he had this fight locked up, just wasn't able to get it done.
Yeah, you also can't feel bad because you did miss weight too. So you missed weight, and then you kind of played around with your food a little bit. That's a rough way to lose, but I think he will be back. I think he's a good man. He'll be back. Listen, this was one of my locks of the night right here. This was more of a low-key lock of the night, but Roman Kopylov over Claudio Ribeiro. Now, this was going to be a fun fight simply because if you looked at the matchup, man, Ribeiro, crazy knockout artist. This was my sleeper, wasn't it, AJ? Yeah, I think this was my sleeper. Yep. Kopylov. And I mean, bro, Kopylov is really, really good. That's just kind of the main point that you have to take away right here. Kopylov at range is going to pick apart pretty much everybody. You better put him on his back and keep him there if you want to have real success. But beautiful head kick knockout, man. That was Leon Edwards-esque right there. It was the jab, throw the head kick over the top, and it was the orthodox style that got it done. What'd you make of the big win for Kopylov? And do people need to put some more respect on my man's name? Like, I don't know why he's still underrated at this point. What do you think?
The only reason people aren't going to be putting respect on Kopilov's name is because that kick was too fast for them to even know what happened, brother. Right. That kick snapped, bap, just like that. Exactly what you want after a nice combo. This dude's got a lot of room to grow. I forget how old he is, but he's young, so it's gonna be a hell of a career for Kopylov going forward. I'm excited, bro. This is a new era of MMA that's entering with this kind of excitement in it. He's one of the forebringers of it.
That's
Figure
right.
out how old he is?
No, I did not figure out how old he is. I could look it up, though. I can look it up real quick because that is good to know for Roman Kopylov.
I just thought you'd look over to the side, so I figured.
No, it's all right. He is 32 years old, so still 32. In his prime. Still in his prime right there. All right, brother, this next fight that I wanted to talk about right here, this was comical, man. Darius Flowers. Let's find out a little bit about Darius Flowers. My man, I mean, he looked ready to go. Came off of a tombstone pile driver victory against this dude right here. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. But the point is, man, he came in against Jake Matthews, and he looked like a dude who, I'm just going to say it like this, AJ, was willing to do whatever it took to win. Now, you can interpret that however you would like to interpret that. But he ate a nice little teep, right? And definitely heavy where the ball of the foot is, liver, but he claimed a nut shot. And I almost thought he was going to be like, I can't continue type nut shot. Like, that's it. I think he would have lost the fight. I think they would have looked at the tape and been like, no, you lose, bro. But, like, first we had that. Then we had just some extracurricular stuff, man, that just didn't look good, right? It did not look like this was the best showing you could have given, especially against a seasoned veteran like Jake Matthews. Gimmicks and performance aside, what did you make of the performance of Darius Flowers?
I honestly, Derick, and I don't want to give too much flack there, but I wasn't that impressed. He looked like a fighter that would be in the mix him up in the middle of a crowd, like in the middle of the division. We're never going to see anything super potential or super, star studded. We didn't see this impact that he had coming in. I think it was LFA where we fought at last. So now coming in the UFC, he kind of faces against a very killer opponent in Jake Matthews, who has been solidified basically in that gatekeeper position. And then now you kind of falter. And admittedly, to the abdomen, I thought it was he caught a little bit of the heel to the cup. So I was giving him some grace. But the more and more they replayed it in slow motion, you can see those toes jabbed first. There might have been residual heel contact, but either way, after that, going forward with, like you said, the extracurriculars and everything, it wasn't that impressive of a fight. And like I said, didn't really see anything that jumped out that made me go, this dude's going to be a star. We might see it in his next fight. It might have been those first fight jitters, but did you see something that really showed to you, Derick, that Flowers has what it takes to really make a statement in the UFC?
Well, I thought that his pressure was really good as long as it lasted, man. He just kind of gassed out, ate a couple body shots, gassed out come, the later parts of round one. And what I really was impressed in this matchup was Jake Matthews, man. Jake Matthews, his workmanship attitude. He literally was all like, ref said it was too low. That's on me. I need to fix it. He finished him twice, bro. He knocked him out and then he submitted him in the same fight. You know what I mean? So shout out to Jake Matthews. Like I said, for me, it's just more of like that. You can do whatever you want. This is a sport of entertainment and bloodbath and all of that. I mean, this is MMA at its finest, right? I am just a little more in the camp of the fighters who you don't got to be Bushido, Yuri Prochazka, you don't got to do all that, Alex Caceres style. But at least show some respect to your opponent. I just felt like it was a little disrespectful to Jake Matthews, what he was doing. Either way, you guys are punching each other in the face, so it doesn't really matter, right? All right, man, let's talk about your sleeper real quick. Now, you hit the nail on the head, my friend. I really thought here that this was just bound for fireworks. Uros Medic gets the win over Matt Semmelsberger, Semi the Jedi. And the problem that we had here, AJ, is that there's a lot of question marks surrounding Medic. He comes back up to 170 pounds. He's super big for 155, still big at 170. This dude is known for his phenomenal body kicks. He's the doctor. And Semi the Jedi put it on him early. But what he did not anticipate is that he would come back and have a strong round two, then come round three, and he put Semi the Jedi out. Spinning back arm. Not quite a fist, not quite the elbow. It was kind of the forearm, the place that Paul Felder says never hit people with because he'll break your arm, but he got the job done. What'd you think?
Man, impressed is the least word I can say, Derick. The lowest adjective I can come up with at the moment, because Uros Medic, I thought he was going to get put out in the first. I thought Semi the Jedi was just literally coming in for kills. Round one, I thought this fight was going to be over. And then you stay calm, you stay cool, you stay composed, you get round two under you, and then you get round three again, like you said, Paul Felder, you get an arm breaker of a spinning back fist, and you still get the knockout, bro. Yeah. This was a dogfight amongst dogfights, folks. That's why I tell you got to tune into that sleeper section. You got to make sure you're seeing these cards or seeing these fights that we're highlighting for you. Because tell me not, this fight was a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, I think we hit, right? 2 sleepers. 2 finishes, 2 knockouts, too, right? So, I mean, we hit. There you go, folks. The proof's in the pudding. We ain't got to sit here and tell you. You already saw what it was. And then moving on to the last fight, I guess I should say the opening bout of the night, Miranda Maverick, short notice, submits Priscilla Cachoeira. This was beautiful, but this was also heartbreaking, too, because I bet the over 2.5 rounds on this fight, and she finished it 10 seconds before the over 2.5 rounds hit. So that killed me right there. But Miranda Maverick, bro, she's just showing that with the proper game plan, she's smoking some of these females, man. And Cachoeira, she had her opportunities on the feet, caught Miranda Maverick a couple times when she was coming in. But yeah, she got the takedown, and that was over. Any thoughts on that?
One, I think Miranda Maverick is finally getting back to the form which she used to perform. Two, she looked a little small to me, Derick. Yeah. Like she looked small for the 125-pound class. Nothing against her for that. But my favorite part about the fight, man, she knew who she was fighting, because when they asked, did you feel the tap twice? And she goes, yeah, I've learned not to stop until the ref stops me. It's a great call. I loved it. That comment right there. I wish she would have just called out somebody else after, and that would have been the picture perfect post-fight interview. I loved the fight after Miranda Maverick.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. And then the other thing, too, is there was claims that Cachoeira was potentially trying to eye gouge Miranda Maverick. And it's like, you can't do that 2 fights. You get cut from the UFC. At least you would think, right? Either way, folks, that is a full recap of the prelims here at UFC 291, the BMF card. I think that they definitely delivered. Lots of finishes on this card for sure. And with that being said, AJ, it's only right. It's time to hop into a quick rankings review. I think we need to break down a division that is in a weird state of limbo right now, man. And I think it's pretty clear what division I'm going to be talking about. This is the light heavyweight division. We need to talk about it, right? And when we bring up the light heavyweight division, we just had really the most substantial victory that we had here for Alex Pereira. Now, luckily for me, when I updated my rankings last, I already considered Alex Pereira at light heavyweight. I said this is where in the mix I think that he should land. I have him at number 5. Clearly, the UFC does not have him ranked, and you do not have him ranked. And I do think that after I update rankings this week, I'm going to switch him from number 5 to number 4. So that's where I think Alex Pereira lands right now. And like I had mentioned earlier in the show, that's a good thing because you did the right thing. You beat Jan, you get the number. But now you're in this weird spot of you have Jamal Hill, Yuri Prochazka, Magomed Ankalaev, and then Alex Pereira. And the question we need to ask ourselves one more time, just for the sake of this segment, does he belong in that category? And I want your opinion because you have yet to place him in your top 15 at all. So where are you ideally dropping him down? You have Jan at 3. So pure logic, he's going to number 3 in your rankings. What do you think?
He's going to number 3, Derick, but I do have to, since Jamal Hill has vacated his title, I haven't updated that either, so I agree with you. Number 4 seems to be the spot that we're going to have Alex Pereira in there, but it's in that top one. Jamal Hill, Yuri Prochazka, Magomed, and then Alex Pereira, Jan Blachowicz following closely after that. But does he belong? I like the question you posed right there because at the top, first thing off my head, yes, this dude does belong in this category because you give him in a fight against Jamal Hill, that's going to be a banger. You get him in a fight against Yuri Prochazka, another absolute banger. I think the hardest fight he has going forward is the Magomed Ankalaev fight. Maybe even Rakic gives him a hard time, but I think Rakic might get knocked out. So does Pereira belong in this division and in the top 5 100%? I just think he has a lot harder ship to go than getting to the title, in 3 fights like he did in middleweight. So this is going to be an interesting one. Who do you think, besides Magomed Ankalaev, that gives Pereira the hardest fight?
Bro, the 3 guys behind him, Rakic, Krylov, and Walker. I think all of those guys would give him a very tough time because they can all grapple. And that's the problem, is that you start grappling with this guy and you start keeping him down. Then, because that's the thing, when Jan immediately went to shoot and when Jan didn't say, I'm going to try to stand up with you a little bit, I was like, oh, this is what we're doing. You're not even going to let him get going. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Only problem is you're at elevation, Jan gasses out quick, right? Imagine you're fighting at sea level and these guys don't gas out and they have 15 minutes of wrestling in them. If you don't allow Poatan to get out, this is why I said it's either you're going to be the smartest man in the room or you're going to look like the dumbest guy because this is classic stylistic matchups right here, right? So, it's safe to say I will be putting Alex Pereira at number 4. I just don't feel good about it because I do think that there's a lot of killers behind him that would be able to do some serious damage. Even Anthony Smith, man. You put him against Anthony Smith, if he could survive on the feet and get him on the ground, I think Anthony Smith can finish for real. But I do have to give it to Pereira. He had fantastic submission defense against Jan Blachowicz. He did have that choke arm in a couple different times, even put a squeeze on him, and Pereira was able to survive. So we both got Poatan coming in at number 4 in our rankings once the update hits. And then, like I said, this is just an interesting little division, man, seeing where we're going next. But with that being said, folks, that is your rankings review for UFC 291. And we have an updated outro sheet, folks. This is the spot that you need to go if you need to stay in tune with what's happening with the Bloody Water podcast. You can follow AJ all across the board at Santa Fe Bomber. But if you want to tune in to the artistic side of AJ, the more in-depth personal side of AJ, that is not what you see here on the podcast, youtube.com/@Santa Fe Bomber. We actually have it linked on our channel, so just go hit there. Now, AJ, get us out of here, man. Tell the people what they need to hear.
There you go, folks. And like Derick said, it might be a little more introspective into my life, but it's not too different from what the fine comment or the fine commentary edits, all the stuff you get on this over here, brother. It is still a lot of fun, but the most place you need to check us out for, the best spot, your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. Like we showed you in the beginning, 4-0 for Derick, 3-1 for me. Either way, you're still winning money consistently week in, week out. And there's a reason we're here doing it with you folks. We love the community we've been building. So keep it growing. Keep sharing it with your friends. Make sure you're subscribed. Don't be a bad friend. If you're winning some money, put in the comments and let another friend know. I know, thankfully, I've been having a couple homies reach out more and more, but they know where to go for the premier content right here at the Bloody Water podcast. It's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to this week's coming up, Derick. We're going to have some good content for you.
That's right. UFC Nashville coming up. We have Corey Sandhagen versus Rob Font, short notice opponent. It was supposed to be Umar Nurmagomedov, I do believe. But with that being said, it's just high level MMA coming back up. So we went from the casual, popular BMF card to high level MMA. Y'all better be ready because we're going to be ready to make you guys some money. So with that being said, this is the Bloody Water Podcast. Catch us on Friday for the preview show for UFC Nashville. And then you can always catch us on the Monday following for the post show. And if you need something, hit the subscribe button. We got you covered. That's it for us. Until next time, folks. Peace.